Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3.
Close this.
Okay, are you ready?
I know it's from Pulteney. Yeah, we don't have any way of getting in touch with anybody from Pulteney. Sure.
Good evening. Now 6:30 or close to, so I'm calling this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome you to town meeting 2026 and this informational meeting. Glad you're here. We meet tonight to share information and to ask questions in preparation for next year's vote. This year's schedule change was made to give voters more time to digest and review the information shared at this meeting prior to voting. It also allows voters who could not attend the informational meeting in person time to watch the video recording and to seek out additional information prior to casting their vote. This town meeting is a tradition that we use for our local system of governance in Vermont, dates back to 1762. My name is Andrew Hayes, and I'm serving as your town moderator. Kevin Eaton is here to assist with our Zoom participants. I'd also like to extend a special welcome to new voters who may be casting votes for the first time, either because they have recently joined our community or because they've become old enough to vote in our election. This is the order of events for the evening. I first will review tonight's meeting mechanics, especially for those participating by Zoom. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we are perhaps offering an opportunity for Representative Chris Pritchard to share comments with us. And then we'll work our way through the articles for discussion, which have been published in the warrant. Tonight's meeting mechanics, for those on Zoom, Kevin Eaton is assisting to help provide a seamless transition between those assembled here in the room and those joining us by Zoom. With regard to those of you joining us on Zoom, please keep yourself muted. You can keep your camera off as well. That provides us better bandwidth. In order to speak, raise your hand, which is a button in the reactions section, and wait to be called upon. If you are joining us by phone, you won't be able to see us, but you can raise or lower your hand as well as unmute and mute yourself by *9 or *6. Once you have raised your hand, please leave it raised unless someone else has asked a question which answers yours, or you've already had a chance to speak, and then lower your hand. Please wait until you are called upon and remember to unmute yourself. For everyone who speaks tonight, please state your name so that people on the phone will know who is speaking. I ask that you do this every time, both the voters here and the select board, and only then begin your comment or question. If you are on Zoom, you may alternatively use the chat function, in which case Kevin will read your question or comment for you. Please label your message with the article number which is under discussion, and please do not type in questions before we reach that article to be considered. When your question is read, I will give you an opportunity to unmute and ask a follow-up or clarifying question if you wish. For those of us in the room, please indicate your desire to speak either by raising your hand or standing up, and we'll acknowledge you. And then we ask that you state your name every time you speak, and only then begin your question or comment. In general, we'll do our best to go back and forth between Zoom and those in the room for questions and comments. Brevity is appreciated, although you have up to 2 minutes to speak. Everyone Zoom in the room wishing to do so will have the opportunity to speak to an article before I recognize anyone wishing to speak a second time to that article. As moderator, I will recognize the registered voters who wish to speak. If there are individuals present who wish to speak or who are not registered voters, please indicate your status and as a non-voter, and allow this assembly to consider the opportunity of affording you a chance to speak. For tonight's information meeting, I'll read the warning and we will work our way through the articles, pausing for questions and comments. Please note that the purpose of this meeting this evening is about asking questions necessary for you and others to cast your vote with confidence. The select board will do their best to answer your questions. My duty this evening is to help facilitate that process, making sure that everyone has a chance to be heard and have their questions answered. Please remember, we gather together to share information and to ask questions in order to make our best decisions on behalf of our community. This meeting and next week's votes are a community activity, and I urge you to approach each with a communal spirit in mind. In that spirit, let us keep questions and comments focused on the articles and their information and refrain from comments directed towards each other. Let us now stand and face the flag for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our state representative Chris Pritchard has indicated a desire to speak to this assembly. As we learned last year, Representative Pritchard is not a registered voter in this town. Therefore, he may be permitted to address this assembly only after approval to do so. Is there a motion to suspend our rules and permit Representative Pritchard to address us? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of allowing Representative Pritchard to address us, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The motion carries. Chris Bishop.
So thank you for having me and allowing me to speak. Just going to kind of give you an overview of what's happened the first 8 weeks and touch on some of the committees. I think that'll be interesting, of interest to you. The first thing I want to do though is, one of the things that's been going on in my committee, and some of you may have heard about, is Act 181. There was a letter written by Neil Ryan that I photocopied. I hope I have enough copies. If not, try to share with each other. But I think it's important for everybody to see and read. Act 81 is going to have an effect on rural towns. The process is going on now. It was a law that was voted in the last biennium. The governor had vetoed it, and his veto was overridden. And it's now in the process of being implemented. The districts, the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 are being determined. Tier 3 is a very small part. It's 5%. But if you're in that 5%, it can have great, great problems for you. So I read this letter and it was very eloquent, very, very well spoken, and he really spelled out, I think, something that'll really resonate with Vermonters. So I'm just going to pass it, and if you want to pass it around, that's copies for you. I'll start with her.
Okay.
Pass it around this week. I wrote this all down so I won't ramble too much. We're 8 weeks into the session. To date, the House has introduced, we went over 900 bills last week. The Senate has submitted 328, so we're around 1,230 bills. I had mentioned last year, one of the concerns I had, and it mentioned that for each bill a legislator drafts, costs the taxpayer roughly $1,000. We have a legislative council that has jurisdiction in every area of the committees that we serve. So when a legislator decides to draft a bill, say it's on housing, he will go to the legislative council on housing, and they'll tell them what they want, and the legislative folks will draft them. Once that's done, it's introduced onto the House floor. The Speaker of the House will assign it to a committee, and then it goes up on what we call the wall. Each committee has a wall in their room where these bills will go. It's the discretion of the chair of each committee which bills come off that wall. This year, taxpayers will spend about 1.25 million on the bills that we have drafted at the legislature. Approximately $900,000 of those bills will never be discussed, never be brought up. And at the end of this biennium, in May or whenever we get out, they'll be discarded. They can be brought up when the new legislature is appointed, but everything has to be resubmitted. Within the next 2 weeks, we're going to go to crossover. So what that means is any bill in the House has to go to the floor and move to the Senate before this time. If it doesn't do it within that time, it's not going to make it and go forward unless at some point it may be attached to a bill when it comes back. But for all intents and purposes, that bill is pretty much done. So I serve on the committee environment. We have 64 bills in our committee that we've had for the year. We've moved 7 of those bills up to this point out. 4 have become law. Act 47 was a technical fish and wildlife bill. It just had technical changes in it, like instead of calling a pigeon, its real name was a rock pigeon, stuff like that. It was just a technical bill. Came out of our committee with a unanimous vote, 11-0. Act 54 was a bill about phasing out PFAS in consumer-related things, such as pacifiers and other things, to get that to say to the manufacturers, you can no longer introduce that into your products. That was a good bill. It came out of our committee 11-0. We had a miscellaneous ag bill, same, came out of the committee 11-0. Act 37 passed. This had to do with stormwater and 3-acre rule. I know people see some of my postings. I'm adamantly opposed to this 3-acre rule. I think it has done great harm to Vermonters. If you were on the list, you would realize that. That came out of our committee 9-2. I was one of the votes against it. And this had a great effect. Luckily, the Rutland delegation got involved. But as this bill was written and went forward and it was going to be enforced, it would have essentially put the Rutland Fair out of business, an institution that's been here almost 180 years. Our committee didn't want to spend the time I thought they should to try to make this bill, fix this bill and make it better. They felt they didn't have time. So they passed it out the last half of the biennium. Really what it did is it's allowed some of the folks that can't afford to do this to waive their impact fees for a while. Eventually, they're going to be responsible. It's not just the Rutland Fair, it's small businesses. We had some folks from Richmond that had a little cul-de-sac with 10 homes on it. It's going to cost each one of those homeowners $30,000 to comply. It's just a harmful bill, and I think it needs to be rethought of. But for now, that's where it is. This half of the biennium, we've spent most of the time working on 5 bills, 3 of which are chair's bills, and one's an environmental miscellaneous bill. It went out of our committee 7-4, so she has decided to go back to the drawing board on that. I expect that she will probably bring it back up. The other one is a wildlands bill that is also Chair Sheldon's bill. It's a bill that I can't support, and I think she realizes that most of the committee can't support. We took testimony from a lot of folks from the Adirondack Trust to preserve land from standing trees, but we also took testimony from Vermont Forest Parks, Fish and Wildlife, and A&R. All 3 are opposed to this bill. These are the folks that we put in charge and in trust with our state to do their things. And their position was that, Act 67 hasn't even had a chance to kick in yet. These folks haven't had a chance to put this stuff in place, and they're tasked now with moving forward on this. Forest and Parks felt that part of it is just to get more connectivity, more ecological reserves. Forest and Parks felt that this wildlands bill would actually reduce the amount of ecological reserves. So we're still talking about it. We'll see where it goes from there. The bill that the first bill I think we're going to move out our committee is H778. It was a bill I co-sponsored with Representative Chapin from Montpelier. Doesn't really affect constituents here so much. It's about dam safety. There are 77 dams in the state that are high risk of failing. What Representative Chapin bill wants to do is to get an emergency operation plan for 2 dams. One that'll affect, in the event of a failure, 1,000 people or more will be affected by it. She wanted to do that, 2 different drafts. Where we've settled is one on 1,000 and one with 100 or less. There's really no funding for the bill. She's asking for $375,000 with the budget the way it is. We have deferred that till next year's budget, but it's a good bill. It's going to save people's lives, I think. And what it allows to happen is 2 templates that can be used for the rest of the state and really probably reduce the cost overall. Education. This is going nowhere. It's gone off the rails. Last week, Peter Conlon, who's the chair of the Ed Committee, submitted a map. There has been a draft 2.1 that the Legislative Council has put forward. I cannot support it. It's a non-starter for me. Presently our 5 towns have had a relationship for many years with Salem for the Rupert folks, Granville, New York, Long Trail, and BBA. And I believe we should have that choice. That's been my position when I started running. It's my position now. This bill will eliminate positively 3 of those choices. It'll eliminate Salem, Granville, and Long Trail. And the wording in it will most likely also eliminate Burburton. I've tried to follow this as close as I can. I talked to 2 of the folks on the committee, Rob Hunter, who's a rep from Manchester, and Beth Quimby from Linden, to just keep in touch with them. But this thing is just a constant moving target. And I think until it lands in the House, it's going to be really hard to follow. But where it stands now, I just can't support it. Senator Bongartz has just recently put out a map. Where that goes, I don't know. But, at first, one of the constituents reached out to me, whose son goes to Granville. It's very important that he's doing well there. And she thought this draft would save him. And when I first read it, I thought it would too. But after I talked to the folks of the Education Committee, they tell me no. So, transportation. There's a big concern in transportation right now. The Vermont transportation funds remain structurally imbalanced. Vermonters spend about $2.4 billion a year on vehicles. $144 million is generated through those purchases, through the vehicle purchase use and tax. Over a third of that has been taken away from the transportation department and put into the education. And the governor wants that brought back. There's a bill in the House to bring it back. And I think need to bring it back. Um, Obviously, everybody sees the condition of our roads. There is no money to do anything in transportation. We have a majority of our bridges are in poor shape, and there's no money to fix them. The money that we claw back, that $50 million, and what the governor is proposing is $10 million a year over the next 5 years. That money will turn federal grants into almost $400 million. For me, it's a no-brainer. It's something I think that we need to consider. In order to maintain the roads in the state, we need to pave 300 miles a year. In order to keep it on a 10-year basis, there's 3,000 miles of roads in the state. Last year, we did 120. And we probably will do the same this year, which is just going to exasperate the problem that we have. So the other thing that's hurt is the fuel tax has been decreasing. One of the reasons it's been decreasing is because folks are converting to EVs. The problem is that the folks that have the EVs aren't paying any fuel tax. So that revenue is declining. The law was changed last year to change the registration rates. There's now a bill. I don't know if it's in the Senate or the House. I can't remember. But to basically add a mileage tax, a yearly mileage tax that they will plan on doing, I think, on the yearly inspections. There's a lot of holes, I think, in trying to accomplish that. But what they're trying to do is those vehicles use the road, so there's obviously wear on the roads there, and so they need to participate also with funding. Housing. The governor's made efforts. He issued an executive order 0625, especially for the rural areas, I think, to ease the permitting process. It's been eased for the larger areas like Burlington and Essex, Brattleboro, but for the rural areas through 181, it's been made a lot more difficult. So he issued an executive order to kind of ease that. Right now, my chair and Chair Watson are in the process of trying to have that overturned, claiming that it is in violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. They've reached out to Legislative Council to draft legislation. Where that goes, I don't know. I'm not sure. But housing obviously is a need that we have in the state. We have two problems with it. Our affordable housing currently in Vermont is $600,000 house. And I don't know how affordable that is to most folks in Vermont. But part of the problem of that, out of that $600,000, $180,000 of that regulatory fees. And that's got to change. That's got to change from the permitting fees to legal fees to construction codes. I've talked to some contractors that are having, the energy codes are a real challenge for them. Some of the materials that they need to meet code aren't readily available. Delays in project, which increases the cost of the homeowner and to contractors. So one of the things, we have just formed a caucus for Vermont's rural economy. 3 folks have formed it. I have joined on to it. Abby Duke from Burlington, Ashley Bartlett from Fairfax, and Chris Morrow from Weston. And basically what we're trying to do is we've brought folks in from the business world to let them talk to us about their stories and the difficulties that they are having trying to either start a business, or, you know, the challenges that they've had to try to form a business. So last week we had two folks come in. One was the CEO of Bolton Valley, and the other was a local businessman, Jose Oliver, who owns Rutland Subaru. And they had some pretty powerful stories to tell. And Jose Oliver's story was he has been, for the last 3 years, been trying to go through the Act 250 process. He has purchased an old dealership in North Clarendon that he wants to make as the new Subaru dealership. He has spent 3 years going through the permitting process. He just 2 weeks ago received his Act 250 permit. He has spent $1 million getting those permits to build this dealership. At one point, he said he had considered just, you know, he could get the same thing accomplished in New Hampshire in 6 to 8 months. He had considered just pulling it. You know, Vermont's economy is going through some challenges right now. One of the challenges it's going through is, you know, we've had a net loss in this state. We have more folks that are dying that are being born. The other thing that adds to the you know, the challenges is for us is in the last 2 years, despite the uptick we had with 7,000 people moving in during COVID, we have now had a net loss of 1,825 people over the last 2 years. Folks that have just decided for whatever reason, it's not affordable or not a business-friendly place for them to be. So one of the things that we're trying to do in this caucus is to figure ways to make it easier and still be responsible in our growth. And one of the things is streamlining these permits. The way the system works now is you get a permit. If you fill it out right, you go on to the next permit. If you don't fill it out right, you get delayed 3 months until you fill it out right and then go to the next step. We would like to see all these permits be issued at the same time. There's no reason for them not to be, and let the people do the paperwork, fill them out, and move forward with the process. If it's wrong, then you're stopping years of delay by doing this. So, property taxes. We're going to be facing another 10 or 11% property tax increase across the state this year. The governor has set aside over $100 million to buy that down to around 4 or 5%. He's not happy in doing that. It will only add to next year's issues. And that's why he's adamant of trying to get everybody to work together and move this education bill forward, get a foundation formula in place so we know what to expect on spending. Until that foundation formula is in place, and it will take 2 years after that is done, this is going to continue. Choice is either to buy it down to let the increase happen. So it's a real challenge. The budget, over the last decade, the state's budget has increased 63%. It's quite frankly out of control. The governor put forth a budget this year of $9.4 billion. It's an increase from last year. It's all organic. It's just negotiated steps in pay and healthcare increases. But I will not be supporting this budget. Spoke to my caucus about it. I just can't vote for it. There needs to be a reduction in the budget. I think people are at the point that they just simply can't do it anymore. The government, size of our government, is twice that per capita as New Hampshire. And I think we have to make some hard choices and start looking at that. We are going through the budget process right now, and one of the things, the A&R budget is going to decrease $49 million this year. It's not because of anything that we did to help that. It's because the ARPA funds have disappeared. So all those positions, programs that were put in when we had that money is gone. So the choice is to either move those programs or put them on the backs of the Vermont taxpayer, and it simply can't do it. So there has been a reduction there. The only thing in our committee that we have put forth is that everybody voted on was a $317,000 increase to the Vermont conservation districts, and that's statewide. Whether or not that will go, I don't know. The challenge is the governor's given his $9.4 billion budget, and now all these committees are sending their ass. And it's a job of appropriations, House appropriations, to cut those out or to let them go. So, the budget may be larger after this process is done, whether the governor decide to veto that or not. I don't. I just think that we have to look, the agency of transportation of all the departments in the state, the one that I think least should take the hit is the agency of transportation, and they are going to lose 20 people through this budget process. It's the only agency that I'm aware of in the state that is going to have that cut. And I just think that things are tighter for folks. It's tougher. Everybody has to cut back. I think that government needs to do that too. I think we just need to, and it's not that these programs aren't valuable. It's just a matter of living within our means. And I think that, I think we have to prioritize those things that are most important to us and fund them. But we can't be everything to everybody. So, I think, last, I'll just say the economic report that's been given that we just received. There were 49 out of 50 states for economic outlook. We rank 51st in economic momentum. The report cites barriers of growth. The employer site is high taxes, complex regulations, severe labor shortages, and housing challenges as significant impediments to growth. A shrinking, aging workforce continues to constrain expansion. So I don't want to be the messenger of doom and gloom, but that's the reality of where the state is right now. I just think that we need to really look at that a lot harder than we have, and make some hard decisions. So I guess the last thing I would want to say is thank you for everybody here that gave me the opportunity to do this. I'm grateful for it. I'm not sure that I'm going to sign up for it again. It's been rewarding in ways. I've had about 60 folks in the 5 towns reach out to me on different issues. I've been able to help a lot of them, and some in big ways. Some there hasn't been a legislative pathway to do that. But I keep them on my list, and in the hopes that something will come on. When I first got here, we had quite a freshman class. We had a big turnover, as you know. And one of the first things that we did, all the freshmen went through a 3-day orientation together. So we got to meet each other, we got to know each other, develop relationships. And so the freshmen decided that they would create a club, a freshman. There was 56 of us, a third of the house, pretty powerful bunch. And we would meet, sit at the tables together and talk about different stuff. And a lot of our views were here, but the idea was to, how can we get it here? And this was going along quite well. Everybody was enjoying it. I think we were making progress. And unfortunately, it was stopped. The fourth meeting I went to, there was nobody from the other party there. They were all gone. And it's unfortunate. And what has been frustrating for me, and that I need to share with you, is how things work up there. And they don't work well for Vermonters in many cases. I feel the state is run by 13 people. You're the Speaker of the House or a chair of a committee. That is where that's the direction it goes. We have bills on our House wall that will help folks. They will help folks. But they aren't part of the agenda that the chair shares. So they are not coming off the walls. And it happens in every committee there. And it's not right. People should be, representatives should be able to also vote for their constituents as they feel is the proper way to vote for their constituents. That also does not happen there. If you know, I have had some friends that have voted their conscience on behalf of their constituents and have been called to the woodshed, and as much as threatened that they would be primary the next election, they couldn't see their way to vote properly. I'm not sure that I want to be a part of that. I'm not sure I want to be a part of that. No. You know, the grateful part is what I've been able to do for the folks in the 5 towns. That's all I really wanted to do anyways. Just wanted to help people. But so I haven't made that decision yet. But I guess I would say this to everybody here. And I think it's important. Whoever decides to run the next time, talk to them and have a sincere policy, a sincere discussion. And that's what Robin and I did. It was respectful. We obviously differ on views. So, but the whole process was respectful. And you know, I'm proud of the fact that what I told people I would do, would stand for, I have. And if you look my voting record, you will see that. It's there for all of you to see. You know, I'm proud of the bills I've co-sponsored. I've probably sponsored as many with Democrats as I had with Republicans. Because that's good bills, that's what you should do. That's how things should work. And I'm disappointed that our freshman class now just didn't take advantage of that. Because I think we could make a difference. We could have made a difference for people. But so please, you decide that next. Don't let your ideology drive that decision. Don't do that. Listen to them and hopefully they're sincere, they're honest with you. And they tell you what they're going to stand for. And then pick the person that you think will best represent you. But don't, you know, I hate this party thing. I don't think either of us had that on our signs. It's not about that. You know, if anything I've learned this year from one of the things, and I talked to Robin about this when I came in, you know, one of the things that I've never forgotten, and I really appreciate it, the first time we had caucus, you know, the first time we had caucus, the minority leader, Patty McCoy, stood up in front of all of us, and she said, "We will never, ever tell you how to vote on the subject. Never chastise you for the way you vote. We will never penalize you for the way you vote." And that's the way it should be up there for everybody. And if you if you look at the votes, that have been cast on many of these roll calls, you will see that that's, we Republicans don't always agree with each other on stuff. But after the vote, we we've always respected each other and the decisions that we've made. So anyways, I've carried on long enough, and I appreciate you giving me the time to speak to all of you. Happy town meeting day and voting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, we'll continue now to the reading of the articles, but before we begin, want to make sure we're not having issues on Zoom with anyone. So please let Kevin know if you can't hear or if there's something that you need addressed before we move on. I'd also like to call your attention that by an advisory vote passed by the registered voters of Middletown Springs in March 2024, the select board was authorized to include existing allocation to nonprofit agencies within the town's general government budget, with individual ballot items only for new and increased requests. What that means is the articles in the warning that we'll be discussing this evening are changes or new requests made to the select board for our consideration. But there's no technical issues for those participating by Zoom that need to be resolved.
Yeah.
We'll proceed to a consideration of the articles published in the warning. I'll read each article and then open the floor for questions and comments. This is our town meeting, February 23rd, 2026. The voters of Middletown, the town of Middletown Springs and the county of Rutland, state of Vermont, who are legally qualified to vote at town meeting, are hereby warned to meet at the Middletown Springs Elementary School multipurpose room in said town by electronic means on this Monday, February 23rd, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. for the purpose of being provided information and to allow for the discussion of the articles to be voted on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. At the conclusion of this informational meeting, we will recess until 7 a.m. of the following week, March 3rd, 2026, at which time business involving voting by Australian ballot and voting required by law to be by ballot will be transacted at the Middletown Springs Town Office Building at 5 South Street, Middletown Springs, Vermont. A reminder again, those polls will open on March 3rd, 2026 from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Article 1, to elect town officers as provided by Vermont law. Floor is now open for discussion or questions regarding the election of town officer.
I would just like to say that there's a list of the candidates on page 70 of the town report. And if you read the list of candidates, you'll see that there are 4 positions with nobody running. So this is the pitch to, the people here are involved by definition. But think about being appointed for one of those, asking to be appointed for one of those positions, or one of the many other positions, appointed positions after town meeting. So we need people. If it's not you, it may be somebody you know. You may want to get your spouse out of the house now and then. Just putting in a plug for increased involvement on the part of citizens. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And on that note, for write-in candidates, you only need 1% to get elected. So 7 or 8 write-in votes for one candidate, you automatically get elected. So it doesn't have to have too many households to have a write-in campaign to fill some of these vacancies.
And apparently I need to remind our select board members to state their name for those who are joining us by Zoom. So that was Robin and Carl. Any other questions or comments?
Make everybody dizzy with my camera.
Article 2, Shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs accept the report prepared by the town auditors? Floor is now open for discussion, questions, or comments regarding the town.
I'm very important. Robin told most of what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
The other, I want the other- all our current elected and appointed officers, the excellent job that's been done this last year. This town is moving forward, not at a glacial pace, it's actually forward at a very nice pace. Really wonderful things are being done. I will reiterate, please consider either telling the select board that you're interested in a position, coming to a meeting, watching it on Zoom, participate, because there's a lot to be learned by amazing professionals that are currently serving in all of our positions. I wear 3 hats in this community, and it's like going to school. I learn from other people all the time at every meeting. So that's it. That's Tracy. Yeah, Nita would give you a lot more spiel here, but read our auditor report. Don't fill you in at all. Thank you.
Herb Childress, I see in the auditor's report that we are going to have an external audit for fiscal year 26. Do we know when that's scheduled to take place?
I believe it would be, and it would be 27. So it's for fiscal year. Yeah, so end of fiscal year
Right.
27, because if along with being our external town audit, it would also include a add-on library audit. So all that timing is gonna come together nicely.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Article 3. Shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs appropriate $434,066 for the general operation of the town, the sum of $354,566 to be raised by taxes on the 2026 grand list of the town of Middletown Springs for the fiscal year of July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Floor is now open for discussion and questions regarding this article.
Robin Chestnut Tangerman. And I would just want to say that, we heard Chris talk about the fiscal responsibilities, challenges facing the state. And that will be trickling down to the town for sure in probably decreased highway aid, decreased grant opportunities, and in other ways that we don't know about yet. So the view that we took was to craft a budget, keeping increases to bare minimum, and we were able, both town and highway budgets are, I believe, less than the rate of inflation. There it's 2.5%, 2.7% increase, something like that. And so that was our goal, to be as responsible as possible. The budgets yet provide enough for the town services. And that was the goal going forward, and I believe what we've accomplished with this budget.
If there's no other questions or comments, we'll proceed to Article 4. Article 4, shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs appropriate $594,800 for the care and maintenance of highways, the sum of $436,800 to be raised by taxes on the 2026 grand list of the town of Middletown Springs for the fiscal year of July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. The floor is now open for discussion, questions, or comments regarding this article. Robin.
Robin Chestnut Tangerman, what I said last time.
Good job.
There being no questions or comments, we'll proceed to Article 5. Shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs authorize the select board to fund the municipal tax stabilization reserve fund with any surplus up to $25,000 from the current fiscal year general fund budget to be used to reduce unanticipated tax increases due to general fund cost overruns? Floor is now open for discussion about Article 5.
Although anybody up here could talk. But,
We could.
this represents a change in the amount previously. With the request was to allocate up to $5,000 of unspent money to the tax stabilization fund, which resulted in more money going to the reserve funds, which is great because we have massive needs that we will need to meet as far as town garage, salt shed, transfer station. But what we decided to do instead was raise that $5,000 to $25,000 that can be used to prevent tax rates from fluctuating too much year to year, returning that money directly to taxpayers rather than saving it for a rainy day. So I just wanted to note that difference from an increase from 5,000 to 25,000.
Any other discussion, questions, or comments?
Herb Childress, just hearing that number. Our annual budget between town and highway is roughly $1 million, so $25,000 is, 4%. That seems like a reasonable savings rate to me.
Thank you.
Any others? All right, we'll proceed to the next article. Article 6. Shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs authorize the select board to fund the reserve fund for town municipal facilities with up to $25,000 of any non-allocated general fund surplus from the current fiscal year, and further allocate any surplus still remaining to be used to reduce taxes? The floor is now open for discussion about Article 6. There being no apparent questions or comments regarding the article, we'll move on to the next. Article 7, shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs approve an additional $10,000 for the Middletown Springs Public Library to be used to help support the library's operating budget as part of the transition to the new library building? The floor is now open for discussion, questions, and comments on Article 7.
I can speak to that. Here. Alrighty, there's not a microphone?
No.
There's not. So there's a mic.
Identify
If there, everybody's
Identify
been here.
yourself.
Yeah, okay, perfect. They don't know.
Yeah, say who you are though.
Yes, I'm Crystal Heyer. I'm the chair of the library board. And so I'm here to talk about Article 7, which is $10,000 for the support the library's operating budget as part of the transition to the new building. So as folks hopefully know, so we're working on our new building space, which we have secured grants for the renovation. This additional ask is about getting us into that building in a way that makes sure that we can be the space that we want to be, that we can make sure that folks are feeling the benefit, the full benefit of being able to be in that larger space. And so that is the main goal of this money. I think that's it, I would say. Any questions or further clarification? Nothing in Zoom info? No, yes. Am I allowed to call on people? I don't know, because I left. Yeah, go ahead.
When is that anticipated?
We are in the construction process right now. Folks have been to Poultney. You've seen all the work on the outside that's happening. The work on the inside is also happening, and we are getting close to being wrapped up. But they're going to be taking a small break just to make sure that we're trying to save all the money that we can on the project, and so there'll be a period where they take a little break because they'll be wrapping up everything they can do until warmer weather. So they'll take a break in the next couple of weeks. Actually, they'll be wrapping up, and they'll come back in warmer weather to finish up the inside work and do the concrete and the stuff on the outside that has to happen. So we will be probably looking at making a move sometime this summer. We're working on finalizing some of those details about exactly when that will happen, and we'll be having kind of a grand opening in the fall. But that is the rough timeline of when they'll be moving over there. Any other questions?
There was a question from Zoom.
Yeah.
Live Lane. What are some of the things that you are hoping will make that transition easier or more comfortable?
Some of the things that we've, in regards to, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Does it,
Sure.
can you just say a little more about that? I just want to make sure I answer your question.
This came from the floor, so hopefully they just heard your
Okay.
response.
I guess in general, it's
In
just,
regards to the $10,000.
so yeah, so that 10,000 is built into our budget to ensure that we can make sure that we have enough folks and time and money to really focus in on some of the programming that we want to be having to do. To utilize a much larger space, we anticipate being able to provide more programming to more people in town so that we can be that community connector. That is what we've always worked as in town, and that we want to expand that possibility and become more of a connector for more people in more ways. And that 10,000 really helps, that's my pen, really will help us to be able to do that. One of the things that is in our budget that you'll see on page, I don't know, it's in the library section 30, something 39 anyway. You'll see a line item for where our plan is to increase the staff position to focus in on some of that programming work. So that is really key to our work in the new building, so that with a larger space and increased programming and increased access to the community and connection to the community, we really needed that extra staff time to be able to fully do the work, so that we can really live up to our other commitment that we've made, is that to make sure that this larger space and more connection and more programming doesn't totally fall on taxpayers, because a bigger building is more expensive. And our goal since the beginning of the project is to make sure that the impact on taxpayers is not huge, and we want to mitigate that as much as possible. And so that means freeing up staff time of other staff to be focused on grant writing and fundraising, and making sure that that is a bigger part of our overall budget. Fundraising has always been about a third of our operating budget, but in a bigger space, that third, or a larger percentage even, is going to be more. And our staff, all of our staff are part-time. And so it's a lot to run the library and run the programming, and also keep an eye on the budget, and also make sure that there is now going to be this new need that needs to be filled of keeping up fundraising and grant writing and all of that. So that is a big piece of that $10,000, if not all of it. It's probably in that, but there are other things that Kimberly, are there other things? I'm gonna ask the librarian if there's something else that I'm just blanking on right now that.
Some of it is just that we don't know what the operating costs will be, the electric, the fuel. We've done our best guess, but the budget is more robust than that.
Right, exactly. So this is also trying to keep in mind that we are not wanting to continue to ask taxpayers for an exponentially larger amount of money. Our plan is to try to keep that very level. And again, we don't know yet what that building is going to look like fully. We've done, as Kimberly said, we've done what we think is a very good job making some guesses. And we are going to be launching a very large, it's called Bridge to Tomorrow, a fundraising campaign in the next couple of months that is also going to be a really big piece of the overall picture, to make sure that, again, we can mitigate any of the impact that it has on taxpayers going forward long term. So that 10,000 helps towards that as well. I think there was another question hand.
Thank you for the person that asked the question. They're saying thank you.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna, Robin Chestnut Tangerman, I'm gonna throw you a softball question, which is of you're talking about the cost to taxpayers, and so far for the purchase, renovation of the building, and all of the energy work done, what has been the cost to taxpayers so far?
Oh, right. So far, 0.
No.
Right, not 0. What has it been?
60, because you had the reserve, 3 years of.
Right,
$5.
right. We have utilized the reserve that was previously voted on towards this project. So that money that was voted on for library use has been used towards this project. So that piece of taxpayer money has been utilized. But the large part of the project has been through grants that we received from the state, both for an energy resiliency grant and then the larger Department of Libraries grant that was for construction of library spaces we applied for last year, 2 years ago. There was another hand, I feel like, oh, here, yes.
Yeah, I was just said that this extra $10,000 is to help supporting for staff for programming. Is that in addition to the 9,000 something that's in the budget here? No. Okay.
No, it's that 10,000 that we feel like we need that money to be able to get us open in the way that we want to be open, so that everybody in town can get be getting that programming, that benefit right off the bat. So that's a commitment that we've made regardless. We're hoping that this will be that money, but we need that, and it'll be part of our fundraising goal if it doesn't come through the ask from the town. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions?
Not on Zoom at this time.
Anyone else? All right. Oh, and then I didn't grab a flyer, but I'll just say one here. We have drive-by pie coming. Pie Day on March 14th. That's coming up. So if you can order your pies by March 5th. There are flyers all over.
And back out on Front Porch Forum.
And then you'll look for it on Front Porch Forum, and please order pie for our pie day. We usually have pie for breakfast, as folks know. Because we have a large project that we're in the middle of. The work that goes into pie for breakfast just felt like more than we could really take on at this point as a board this year. So we decided to go with this version of pie. We did this during COVID. I don't know if folks might remember, we did this during COVID, so we trialed it. Then we felt like it was a good halfway point between not having pie at all, but not being able to have, nobody had the bandwidth to commit to the whole pie for breakfast this year. But we'll be looking to get back to that after this. All right. Any other questions? Last chance. Going on. Okay, great.
Good job.
So if there's no other questions, comments regarding that article, we'll move on to Article 8. Article 8. Shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs vote to exempt from property taxes for a period of 5 years from July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2031. The property which is located on Firehouse Lane and which is owned by the Middletown Springs Volunteer Fire Association Incorporated and is issued for the purposes of such organization. Floor is now open for discussion on this Article 8.
You can explain. So we have to. You should. We do that once every 5 years. Yep. Sure. Okay. Terry Redfield, Select Board. I'll try to explain this, and maybe Patty can help me if I screw it up. This comes up, I believe, once every 5 years, and this is for the fire association or the fire department building itself. The land the land that it sits on is leased, but this is for the actual building itself. So this was the year that it came up.
Well, in actuality,
Well, yeah, I wasn't gonna go there, but
well,
okay.
we haven't voted on it in a while, so it was noticed that it hadn't been voted on in more than 5 years. So it was time to put it back on the ballot and get it voted on. What I learned from the listers when I found this out is that we have a lot of nonprofits in town. Some of those nonprofits are automatically exempt from taxes by state law, fire association and fire departments that are separate from municipal fire departments are not. So they need to have the vote, and the longest you can exempt an organization is 5 years, and you have to keep renewing it. So this is the, you know, it's just one of those housekeeping things, and sometimes it got lost in the
lost
shuffle
track
at
of
one
some-
point, and now we're back on it, but that's what this is. Sorry.
Oh, no, thank you.
Good here.
Any other questions or comments?
John Matheson, I just have to ask, since there was a gap between the last time we approved this and now, what happens to those gap years? Does the fire department have to pay taxes to the town? Or were they just automatically forgiven? What was that process?
The mix-up was that the listers thought it was on a ballot and it wasn't, so they never charged them tax in those 5 years, so it seemed like a moot point to go back and do anything, because nothing ever happened, there was no tax charge.
Okay.
Good question, though.
All right, there's no other questions or comments. We'll move to the next article. Article 9, shall the town of Middletown Springs deem necessary and appropriate $86,000 for the Middletown Springs Volunteer Fire Department, determining that the program serves the residents of the town with fire protection and emergency response services. The floor is now open for discussion regarding this Article 9.
Kevin Eaton, I live in West Street. Recently I was appointed as the president of the Fire Association. As you'll notice, the amount for this year's ask was level funded. And we just took a look at, today's economy and our fundraising attempts and success, and we just could not see asking for more money. So hence the level funding. And see what it brings next year, but try to keep our costs down. I think they're rather what they're doing.
Other questions or comments? All right, we'll move to Article 10. Shall the voters of the town of Middletown Springs deem necessary and appropriate $39,700 for the support of the Pulteney Rescue Squad, determining that the program serves the residents of the town with emergency life support and transport services. The floor is now open for discussion of Article 10.
I have a question, Chris Fenton. It's in regards to the financials of the Pulteney Rescue Squad. We have a report in the town report about the rescue squad, but there was no financials, and I believe last year our treasurer urged the board to adopt a policy to request a financial report from entities that were asking more than $5,000. I was wondering if the board had any opportunity to reach out to the Pulteney Rescue Squad with that.
Robin Chestnut Tangerman, I believe we did ask for a financial statement or financial report and got the letter that you see in the town report. So we don't know what the details of the financial dealings of the Pulteney Rescue Squad.
Follow-up question.
Follow-up question with Chris. Is there any way that we as a town can do a pushback for their request pending our financial report? I'm saying, it's not on the ballot, but I'm just wondering if that would be an opportunity.
Robin Chestnut Tangerman again. There was discussion due to their dissatisfaction of not knowing more, not getting information. At this point, they're on the ballot there, so their question will be asked and voted on. And I don't know what we can do other than ask for information to be provided by town meeting. Yeah, I'm open to suggestions.
Herb Childress, I mean, it's a slow response, but one thing we could do would be to have a ballot item next year. Mandating exactly that, saying that for all organizations receiving more than $5,000 in public funds, a financial statement is required to be published in the town report. Now, that would be 2 years before that actually took effect, because it would go into effect for the next ask, but it would be something.
Or you could modify the policy you have now to
Right.
include that.
Right. Good point.
Oh, wait,
Yeah, so,
from Juanita. What happens if the request is voted down with regards to the risk squad services?
Right.
Carl Haynes, it would then be up to the select board and the services to determine where coverage would come from. Because their license says that they provide service in Middletown Springs when they're issued a license from the Department of Health. So, the financial part of it, unfortunately, all services for the most part are struggling. And the close to going out of business, as some services in the state has. So the more of the burden has been shifted to the taxpayers instead of the users and the insurance company. You know, just like anything, Medicare only pays 20 to 30% of the typical bill. I've seen a bill that received in my house for my daughter transport from Granville to Rutland to be more than $2,000. You know, so if they're only paying Medicare is only paying 400 or 500 of that, that's where it's coming back on the local taxpayers to try to pick up the difference. But I don't know how much longer this service will be in existence over there.
Juanita also asks, so they're still required to provide services to us, question mark.
They would have to change my opinion would be they'd have to get a change to their license. And then this board would have to find a transport service to cover the town at whatever cost came with it, either going back to the voters to get approval for it or finding the money to hire another service.
any other questions or comments regarding this one? All right, no other questions or comments regarding that article. Our last article, Article 11. Transact any other business proper to be for this said meeting. Is there any additional business for this assembly?
Maybe this should have come up under.
Can you let us know your name, please?
Phil Reed, here for the first time in 25 years, only as a taxpayer. This should have probably come up under Article 4. But, I was just wondering if there were any grant applied for this coming up construction season for the highways. I know Route 140 is going to need some paving done before too long. There's a major structure down there. The grants available through the state that you can apply for. I used to do these under road industry path. They're both two grants, one structure grant, one paving grant, and they're at the tune of $270,000, which takes a, if we happen to land, takes a good burden on that. And like I say, we've structures on 140 that's going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. and the same with paving. So I was just wondering if, there was any grants applied for this year? And I think we've all seen in the past few years how the town's moved forward by using grants. I mean, we got a new town office, new library in process, and a lot of the highway work has been done under significant grants and have been written. I think being in Vermont, if anyone's reading the news, I think you could pretty much assume that we're not gonna be in good contention for any money from FEMA. And I think that it's gonna be more important that we look at other ways and look ahead, try to fund some of the things that we've done with our infrastructure. Thank you.
Carl Haynes, as we discussed last week, the due date for those grants are the 15th of April. And we discussed some of this last meeting 2 weeks ago.
So I asked for last year for this construction. If the grants were applied.
There was none last year. Is what Brian had said in that letter. That they didn't have any grant rounds last year. That they opened it up again this year. For these types of grants. Is what was in I thought I read in what Brian had sent out, Brian Sanderson of the Highway Department. So. And the only grant that Herb had written last fall there, we did get that $12,000 grant that's in this budget, so.
Yeah, that's a grants made.
Grants made, yeah.
Another one for this construction season. On with Better Back Roads. Several other grants to the state.
Any other items of business for this assembly to discuss?
Meredith Morgan, now I'm the school board member. We have a meeting Wednesday night. Love to hear you. I want to make a comment on something Mr. Richard mentioned, the 12% across the state increase. We don't have that here. Our taxes from the school budget are going up 7 cents. It is actually a 1.58% decrease in per pupil spending. Like many of the rural schools in Vermont, we did a really good job on not overusing ARPA funds to the extent where we created new programs or created new positions. We used the money knowing it was going to run out. And this 12% means that there are systems in the state that have a 25% increase because we have a decrease. Wells is the other member in our district. Their taxes are going down. That's because they have a new CLA. I just we get a lot of misunderstood facts thrown at us, and wanted to clarify that a little bit. And invite you to attend either via Zoom or right here Wednesday night to get a clear picture. There's also, we're on PEG TV. You can also go to the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union website and see descriptions of how we get to the numbers. Okay.
So I'd just like to add that there are school reports in the back of the room on the table, as well as town reports and voter registration forms if anybody knows anybody that needs to register to vote still. But yeah, and one other thing, I'm also the school district clerk by default. The school meeting is a mixed meeting of floor vote and Australian ballot. So the clerk, the moderator, and the school district treasurer all voted from the floor. So at that meeting, it's good if people come to vote, because it's another opportunity to vote.
I think it'd be an ideal time for the town to thank Herb Childers for his years of service and Bill Reed for his years of service to the community. For the years of service, they've also retired or have stepped down in this past year.
Maybe we can get into that.
Anything else? All right, there's no other business to come before this assembly, and there are no objections. I declare this informational meeting of our 2026 town meeting recessed. And remind you the town meeting will resume next week, Tuesday, March the 3rd, 2026 at 7 a.m., where in-person voting by Australian ballot and voting required by law to be by ballot will be transacted at the Middletown Springs Town Office Building at 5 South Street, Middletown Springs, Vermont. The in-person voting opportunity continues until 7 p.m. that day. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
All right.
I'll be there.
Let's say they all have it.
Yeah.
I've been trying to dig in here after
Oh, well,
11 o'clock
I can-
in the school board.